Inside a van, a group of snipers reload their weapons and prepare for a mission in the town of Buck Lake. They record everything on camera and announce that their next attack will be on the Hastings supermarket. This is where a young packer called Benny works. That same night, his manager, Tarky, forces him to work overtime. Even though he has been on the market since an early age, the young man is forced to stay. Otherwise, he will lose his job. He then makes his way to the stockroom, but on the way he finds one of his colleagues, shot on the floor. Immediately afterwards, the group of masked gunmen point their weapons at him, and through the communicator, they announce the robbery and order everyone to stay on the ground. Benny, along with his colleagues and the market's customers, is taken hostage by the criminals, but they don't seem to be after money. One of them, called Spooky, begins to analyze everyone using a telekinetic ability to identify them. During the inspection, one of the customers becomes desperate, and Spooky tells his colleagues to shoot her. The woman is eliminated with a shot to the neck, and the guy confirms that she was one of the targets they were looking for. The group continues to inspect the customers, but one of them is a police officer called Chambers. As soon as the criminal gets distracted, the officer pulls out his gun, shoots him in the head, and tells the police station that a group of armed thugs have broken into the market. As soon as he spots more gunmen, the policeman shoots them and starts searching the corridors for the rest of the gang. During the search, he comes across Spooky and without hesitation shoots the guy, who falls lifeless to the ground. Ritter, the leader of the group, sets out to confront the policeman. But before Chambers knows it, Kane, another gunman, appears next to him and fires his shotgun. The officer is eliminated on the spot, but the gunman finds a cell phone in his hand and learns that the police will be arriving at the supermarket shortly. The gangsters get together and have to decide what to do, because with Spooky gone, they can no longer identify the customers. Kane suggests eliminating all of them and fleeing before the police arrive, but Ritter refuses, as the group's mission is to find their most dangerous target. Everyone agrees with the leader's decision and sends Tarky and the cashier, Whitney, to the office. Ritter then uses Spooky's blood to write a notice on the gates, telling everyone to stay away from the market. Minutes later, a police car pulls up in front of the market, and the officers order the group to surrender and release the innocents. However, Logan, another gunman, opens the door and releases only those that Spooky had already inspected, leaving all the others trapped in the supermarket. After that, the shooters head for the freezer, where they find bodies that don't appear to be human. Sterling, the group's doctor, starts to inspect the bodies, but Kane thinks it's best not to waste time and shoots them all in the head to make sure they're not really alive. Kane then orders Whitney and the butcher Manny to carry Officer Chambers' body back to the freezer. The young woman obeys the order and covers his body with plastic, but before she does, she sees the policeman's gun inside the holster. Outside, the police interrogate the freed innocents to find out how many shooters and survivors are still in the market. Shortly afterwards, Detective Seth shows up at the scene to see what happened and discovers that Whitney, his stepdaughter, is also being held prisoner. He immediately sends the police to call an ambulance and surround the perimeter to prevent relatives and onlookers from entering the market. However, as Seth comes from the big city, his colleague reminds him that they are in a quiet place and don't have all these resources. The detective then tells them to keep watching and to keep everything secret so as not to create panic in the town. Meanwhile, inside the market, Ritter says they need someone to replace Spooky and inspect the rest of the customers. To do this, he suggests calling in Charlotte, one of his colleagues, but Kane reminds him that she has failed them in the past. Even so, the group has no other choice, and until they find a way to bring Charlotte to the market, Sterling must analyze his prisoners by other means. Even though she knows it could risk their lives, the doctor goes to get medical equipment from the market to start the inspection. In the meantime, Logan takes Spooky's body to the freezer right next to Chambers' body, which suddenly starts to move. As for the prisoners, Kane tells them all to drink several liters of milk, as this will be necessary for the analysis. Once they've all had a drink, it's time to test them, and Manager Tarky has chosen to be the first. As soon as the shooter leaves the room, Whitney warns the group that the policeman who was eliminated has a revolver in his holster. She suggests that the best thing to do is to take the gun and get out of there, as she realizes that none of the shooters are willing to negotiate their freedom. She says she knows about it thanks to the ransom cases her stepfather Seth told her about. Meanwhile, the detective finds the shooter's van near the market, and inside it are several rounds of ammunition and a digital camera. One of the policemen informs us that the van belongs to Aaron Ritter, the leader of the group and an employee of the JPL laboratory. However, after his wife lost her life, he resigned and has remained anonymous ever since. Seth tells the policeman to find some way of contacting Ritter to negotiate the release of the innocents. In the meantime, the shooters gather in front of the customers, and for the first time, they speak calmly and explain why they were all arrested there. Ritter warns that a dangerous substance has infected one of them, and only Spooky was able to identify the victim. Because of this, those who were infected were eliminated, while the others were able to escape. Now, without Spooky, the only solution was to force everyone to drink milk, as the drink will alter the pH level in their bodies and cause a reaction. Even so, they still have to be tested one by one. And as Kane had said, the first will be Tarky, who is taken to another room. There, the group begins to interrogate him, but he becomes very nervous and can't answer the questions. Sterling tries to calm him down, but as soon as he starts talking, the doctor rests his left hand on a wooden board and prepares to remove his finger. Desperate, the guy gets up and asks them to let him go, because in return, he'll give them the money he took from the cashier. However, no one in the group cares about money, and they continue to interrogate Tarky because, from the answers they get, they will know if he is infected or not. A noise coming from the room catches Kane's attention, and he goes out to see what's going on. Just then, one of the prisoners, a high school teacher, says he knows how to shoot and offers to get the policeman's gun from the freezer. To help him, Manny takes his necklace, which contains a disguised pocket knife, and hands it to the gentleman so that he can free himself from his bonds. The interrogation continues in the living room until they receive a call at the office from Detective Seth. He manages to get in touch with the police, and as soon as Ritter answers, Seth proposes a deal to free the innocent. The detective demonstrates that he already knows everything about the group's leader, but in response, Ritter tells him that he needs a woman called Charlotte. She is arrested for drunk driving, and the leader of the group demands that she be brought to the supermarket. Before hanging up, he warns that if he doesn't come as soon as possible, things will get worse and worse at the market. After the call, Seth takes a look at the camera inside the van and watches a video recording. The recording was made by Sterling, and it shows that the infection has an alien origin and arrived on Earth via meteor. It was also discovered that infected humans give rise to a powerful and lethal alien, which eliminates its host as soon as it is born. The only way to deal with them is to put them in cold places, such as a freezer. Finally, even though cold temperatures are fatal to aliens, it can still take hours for the creatures to be eliminated. Along with this recording, Seth discovers from the police files that all the team members used to work at the JPL laboratory. After resigning, they got together and started buying weapons to hunt down the aliens and identify all the infected. Now that he knows the truth, all Seth can do is wait for Charlotte to be brought to the market to continue the negotiations. In the meantime, the interrogation continues, and Sterling removes Tarky's finger, puts it on ice, and makes a bandage to stop the bleeding. After 2 minutes, the doctor realizes that there has been no reaction and deduces that he is not one of the infected. After that, the group decides to call the next client for the test, and Kane chooses Whitney. The young woman despairs and ends up revealing that her stepfather is Seth, the same detective who talked to Ritter on the phone. This doesn't help much, and Kane pulls the young woman away. But to everyone's surprise, Benny offers to go in her place. Far away, a policeman takes Charlotte away in handcuffs. She turns out to be a lady with a history of excessive consumption of illicit products. On one of the missions with Ritter's group, she was so affected that she ruined everything. And since then, she has had no further contact with her colleagues. Even so, she is willing to help, but tells the officer that the handcuffs are too tight and asks to take them off. The officer refuses, but without him realizing it, she breaks her own wrist to get free. Back in interrogation, Benny undergoes the same test, and like Tarky, his finger is also removed. Fortunately, he is not infected and is sent back to the warehouse with his heroic attitude impressing the whole group, especially Whitney. The next to be tested is one of the clients who is taken into the room and has her finger removed. However, unlike the others, the finger regenerates and the woman starts acting strangely, letting out screams that cause tremors everywhere and using her strength to attack the group. Shortly afterwards, her body begins to implode, as if the alien was about to burst out of her chest. Quickly, Ritter grabs a knife and strikes the woman behind the neck, who falls lifeless onto the table. The danger has passed, but Kane goes to see if his colleagues are all right, which gives the teacher the chance to loosen his bonds with the pocket knife and go to the freezer. Once inside, he searches for the policeman's body and finally finds his gun. However, the teacher stumbles over one of the bodies and accidentally fires his revolver. The noise wakes up Police Officer Chambers, who was also infected, and he pulls the teacher out, eliminating him in a frightening way inside the freezer. The sound of the gunshot is heard by Ritter, who sends Logan to accompany Kane to keep an eye on the prisoners. However, as soon as they arrive at the warehouse, they realize that the teacher isn't there and demand to know where he's gone. None of them respond, and Kane then points his gun at Whitney, threatening to shoot her if they don't respond. Once again, Benny protects the girl and says that the guy has gone to the freezer, so the shooter goes with Logan to look for him. Inside, they find the teacher's badly wounded body, but as soon as he reacts, Kane shoots him. Seconds later, Police Officer Chambers appears, looking even more monstrous, and the two gunmen unload their weapons on him. Ritter and Sterling hear the shots and try to contact their colleagues on the communicator, but no one answers. The leader runs to the freezer, where he finds Kane wounded, and he warns him that the policeman is not only infected, but that he must also be one of the kings of the alien species. To make matters worse, during the confrontation, Kane also ended up being infected and now has little time to live. Before leaving, he says goodbye to Ritter and tells him to finish off the aliens before it's too late. Finally, Ritter knows what he has to do, and with one clear shot at Kane, he puts him out of his misery. After that, he runs to Sterling and warns her that the king, the one they were looking for, has infected Officer Chambers, and they need to stop him. Luckily, Kane manages to leave him wounded, so the alien won't risk leaving the market. Even so, now only the two of them are left to face the creature, but Ritter decides to go alone while Sterling stays to look after the prisoners. At the same moment, Charlotte is finally taken to Detective Seth, who demands to know everything that is going on. The woman reveals that they are facing a dangerous alien species, and she has been called in to be an identifier. Like Spooky, she is able to know who is infected, thanks to the power she has acquired from having had contact with the alien substance. However, by using drugs and illicit substances, Charlotte manages to control the infection and even gains the ability to detect others of her kind. The conversation continues, but at the market, Ritter goes into the aisles. Armed only with his pistol, he sets off in search of the infected policeman. On the way, he finds Logan's body and, to make sure, shoots him. But this attracts the alien king, who begins to pursue him. Ritter escapes from the creature just as Whitney and Manny manage to loosen their bonds using the pocket knife. After that, the three of them try to escape, and Manny jumps at Sterling, bites her hand, and manages to get her pistol. The trio are about to flee, except that Ritter has lured the creature into the warehouse so that Sterling can shoot it. However, as she is unarmed, the monster appears, knocks Manny away, and runs after him. Benny quickly grabs the gun and points it in Ritter's direction, ordering him to let them go. However, the leader of the group says that he is not their enemy and that he needs to stop that creature from escaping the market and spreading the infection. To prove it, Sterling shows that she also had to remove her own finger to make sure it wasn't infected. Whitney and Tarky insist that Benny take them out of the market, but seeing that Ritter is telling the truth, he gives up shooting. Ritter then calls Seth and finds out that Charlotte is already there. He then makes a deal to exchange his colleague for one of the prisoners, and the policeman accepts, arranging to meet them at the back door of the market. With everything settled, the group heads there and passes a dark warehouse on the way. They follow with their guns drawn and making as little noise as possible, fearing that there are more infected in the area. Suddenly, they find Manny's body lying on the ground and are left with no choice. Ritter shoots him to prevent him from returning infected. Then they see that the back door has been blocked, and the only way to make the switch is to risk the front door. Ritter warns Seth on the phone, who goes with Charlotte to wait on the other side. The group then heads for the main market area, watching out for any strange presence until they notice something speeding through the aisles. The five of them hide among the shelves. of the market, but Tarky stumbles and drops his pot with its frozen finger on the floor. The man decides to go after the pot and manages to get it, only to be attacked by the infected policeman, who pushes him away and attacks him ferociously. Ritter gets the others to safety and sends Sterling to hide Benny and Whitney in the manager's office. With the two safe, the leader heads to the entrance of the market and lets Seth in, with the two pointing their guns at each other. The detective asks where the prisoner is for the exchange, but Ritter reveals that he has been eliminated. Still, Whitney is safe in the manager's office, and he needs Seth's help to stop the real enemy. Even though he suspects him, Seth agrees to help, and Charlotte warns him that she is sensing the presence of a very powerful alien. Ritter warns that it's the king of the species that is possessing the policeman, and they need to eliminate it before it comes into contact with the females and can spread the infection even further. Shortly afterwards, they hear the sound of gunfire coming from Sterling, who is running away from the creature and ends up luring it to the group. The four of them then gather behind the counter and start shooting at the alien king, but the shots don't harm him, and he runs away. Charlotte believes the alien is looking for something, and they fear it may be the two youngsters. Meanwhile, Benny hears the monster's noise and says he'll distract it while Whitney tries to escape. But this time, Whitney refuses because she doesn't want to leave him alone. Luckily, Seth finds them in the manager's office and quickly takes them safely out of the market. The two are left inside the car while the detective stays to help the rest of the group stop the monster. However, when they open the door, several of the policemen come in armed and set off in search of the shooters, believing them to be the culprits. Before doing so, Ritter asks Charlotte to attract the alien king's attention with her power. So she emits a strong sound wave to attract him. The monster responds with a powerful scream, and the group waits for it to appear to try and eliminate it once and for all. However, the police show up soon after, ordering everyone to drop their weapons and get down on the ground. Before they can obey, the infected policeman appears on the scene and starts attacking Ritter. He throws him around the market, and the policemen don't shoot because they might hit Ritter. Finally, the creature begins to strike him several times in the back until Seth fires his pistol into the air, attracting the monster's attention. The alien then takes off towards the policeman, but just as he was about to attack them, Ritter jumps on his back and hits the monster with the knife. He then uses the blade to hit it in the neck, and finally he pulls the alien out of the policeman's chest. With the creature trying to break free of his grasp, Ritter orders all the policemen to shoot, and they fire at the alien. Unfortunately, several shots hit Ritter, who falls to the ground, seriously wounded. Sterling rushes to save her friend, but she knows it's hopeless, and he's probably infected too. Ritter asks her to eliminate him, and even though she resists, Sterling shoots him, apparently ending the alien infestation. After all this confrontation, Seth arrests Sterling, but she warns him that it is still necessary to ensure that no more aliens have survived. However, when Charlotte goes to inspect the creature that Ritter took from the policeman, she discovers that it wasn't actually a king of the species. The real king was in another of the prisoners was none other than Whitney, the only one of the group not to be inspected. To Benny's misfortune, he hears the information on the car's communicator and notices that Whitney doesn't react at all. He points his gun at the young woman, who declares her feelings to him, but then becomes infected. Benny fires his gun, but the sound of the alien coming out of her body is heard, as well as the young man's cries of despair. Whether he managed to survive or whether the alien escaped remains a mystery. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps.